Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to my live Q&A and my lingerie. I'm so glad to have you guys here. If you are here, please hit the little thumbs up because that will let me know that you're here. Sorry, I'm just looking at my lighting because it's kind of reflecting in my glasses. But I'm excited to see what you guys have in store for me in the chat section. So if you're new here, every week I do these live Q&As and my lingerie. And so I typically like to what I'm doing now is I'm starting off with an actual topic to keep us a little bit more focused because there are certain topics that you guys need answers to. So I want to make sure that I'm addressing those, but also answering your questions in live time. So that's what we are here to do. And this one, we're talking about opening up to a woman without sounding needy. Is this even possible? Can you do this? And oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, I am wearing a different type of lingerie. Sorry, I've got to take these off for a little bit. They're driving my eyes nuts with these lights as well. These lights are not very flattering, by the way. So yes, I heard you guys complaining over and over about how you're like you wear the black one all the time, and so this is one that I picked up in Italy. Still goes well with the Coco Chanel. So yeah, I'm actually liking this color a lot. It matches my phone, it matches my laptop, matches everything. Not that you guys even care. I forget that. Hello, I'm talking to men. So before I get started, let's just see some of your questions. Ninja Wolf says, he says, hello, Erica. I'm predicting that you had creamy chicken and broccoli pasta and a glass of red velvet wine. I have not had that just yet, but I have had lots of pasta here in Italy, lots of pizza. And let me tell you, my little tummy, I actually have a tummy now. I'm like, oh, I need to just slow my roll. Slow my roll. Okay, any other questions? Oh, this is a great question. Thank you, Ninja Wolf, for asking this because it does tie into our topic, which is sorry, I have a little bit of a headache, and I just realized that I think it may be these lights that's giving me a bit of a headache. Excuse me. He says, can I open up to a female companion I'm with? A true story about my terrible past I had just to get her to feel more understandable. So, we're going to talk about this opening up to a woman without sounding needy. So, when we talk about opening up, we're essentially talking about what? Vulnerability, right? Being vulnerable with the women. And I get a lot of guys who ask me, they're like, Erica, how do I know when opening up is when it's too much? Um, I don't want to come across as needy. I don't want her to, take advantage of me. These are all legitimate concerns, right? So, one thing, I talk a lot about Dr. Brene Brown. She's a fellow Texas girl, and I really enjoy her work. I enjoy her style of communication. But one thing that she says is that people have to earn a right to hear your story. And so when I'm encouraging you guys to be vulnerable about opening up to a woman, that doesn't mean that on a first date you tell her about your horrible past. There are times where it feels right to share with someone that you just met about your past. Um, and typically that shouldn't really transpire on a first date, unless you see that that person is asking you questions. They're like, tell me more about that. And if there is tremendous compassion and empathy for the smaller pieces that you begin to share with them. So, Dr. Brene Brown, as I said, says, people have to earn that right to hear your story. And vulnerability is you communicating your story. So when I'm encouraging you guys to open up to a woman, especially when it's a new relationship, a lot of my audience, a lot of you guys are single, and it's like, no, you don't always open up with your story. You can be open about your life and what's going on for that day. Like, For example, like, I had an incredible day at work. I got this promotion and I am so excited. I have been looking forward to this for the past 3 years and I've been working my ass off and I'm so thrilled. That's something that isn't as vulnerable, right? But it's still communicating like what you're experiencing, what you're excited about, or what you're disappointed about, or what you're sad about. But when we start talking about our stories, when we start talking about the things that we've gone through, someone really needs to earn a right to hear that. That's not something that we just give out to a woman on a first date. Those aren't things that we share with someone who does not show that they're equally invested into us. And I know, like, for some of you guys, I'm of the concept of less is more. And when guys tend to get on dates, they want to do more, 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 more to try to get her, but it actually pushes her away. And I feel like sometimes we men, because men don't always know how to do healthy vulnerability because men haven't been empowered with that. That a lot of times men want to use their stories to, like, I just want her to understand. But if she's not asking, then there's no point in relaying that story. If she doesn't show that she's interested, then there's no point in you going out of your way to tell her that. Because, sometimes guys try to use this as a tactic of like getting sympathy so that she feels emotionally connected to you. That's not why we use vulnerability. We use vulnerability so that someone can get to know us, but they have to also have an invested interest. So when you come across as needy, it's like, I need you to understand this about me so that you will accept me. And it's like, no, 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 no. We accept ourselves. You accept yourself. You're an emotional warrior. You go on that journey to accept yourself. And what happens is the needy vibe is, I need you to do something for me that I'm unwilling to do for myself. Write that down. A needy vibe is, I need you to do something for me that I am unwilling to do for myself. And so a lot of times when we don't feel capable about something, in terms of resolving it for ourselves, for getting answers for ourselves, we want to dump it on other people. Like, maybe this person will, be able to help me get some clarity around that. But it's like when it's a new person, that's not their job. Maybe in the context of a relationship, they can go on that healing journey with you. But if it's a new woman, it's not her job. So when you open up to her, you're opening up to her about relevant things in your life at this moment. It's not about opening up about childhood trauma, things of your past. Those things you reveal to a woman who has earned that right. And she's earned that right by showing you compassion, showing you empathy, asking questions, essentially saying, tell me more. I want to know more about you. But if she's not giving you any of that and you're just trying to use it as a ploy to get more of a connection out of her, that's coming from a very needy place. And a woman, is either going to, a healthy woman just going to go, it's going to push away, or an unhealthy woman is going to take advantage of that. Unfortunately, people do that. So just to bring some clarity, when you're opening up to a woman, it's not about things that you need her to manage, fix, and it's not a ploy to create connection. When we share something vulnerably, it's because it's a feeling that we get. We feel safe in that person's presence. We feel seen by them. We get a sense of that they actually understand us and they want to know. Here's the thing. We open up to people who want to know more about us. Write that down. We open up to people who want to know more about us. Those are the people that we're opening up to. But if we're opening up just to establish connection and they're not giving anything back, that's neediness. Because think about it. Why would you open up to someone who is just showing you zero interest? They ask you zero questions about yourself. they don't make a lot of effort to really get to know you. They're more focused on them. That type of person is not the person that you want to open up about those deep things about. That kind of person, I like to, if being vulnerable for you is a challenge, start off light and then work yourself into the deeper things of your heart. So the things that and what I mean by starting off light is opening up about things that if the person doesn't validate you, if they don't take the time to hear you, it's not going to be a huge loss. Like, for example, for me, I am a YouTuber. So if I met someone, I'm like, oh, I'm a YouTuber. And I would just kind of drop it there. If they want to know more about me, what's your YouTube channel about? Well, it's about, helping men connect with women intimately, essentially. Um, okay. Now here it gets more intimate. But why? Why do you do that? Oh, that's a more intimate connection. If I feel like they're genuinely interested, then I'm gonna go because I've seen the struggle. I know how much men want love in their lives. I know the battle of rejection that a lot of men go through. I personally have gone through a tremendous amount of rejection in my life. So I empathize with these men. I empathize with feeling incapable. I struggled a lot with feeling incapable and powerless in my life. And I know a lot of men, I would probably say that's more the heart of my message right there. I relate to men in terms of feeling incapable and powerless. And not to say that I'm saying that men oftentimes feel that way with women. I just feel lost with women. I don't know what they want. I feel uncertain with women. And so I know I empathize with men and I feel that. I wouldn't go and share any of that with a person if they are trying to get to know me and there is an agenda involved, and you can feel that from a person when they're like, "Well, why do you wanna help men?" If they answer me if they ask it in that tonality, if it's, like, more of, like, being vindictive, I'm just gonna go, "Well, it's just something I've been doing for a while, and I'm quite passionate about it," and boom, I would drop it there. Can you see the difference? Like, if someone's sincerely interested, like, that's a person that you wanna continue to go in those depths of opening up to them. But if they're not asking questions or if they're a bit antagonistic, when asking the questions, which some people are, which I never understand those type of people who get very antagonistic when they ask questions, when talking to someone, I'm like, "God, in what world does that work for you? And who actually responds to you when you're asking questions in such a tonality?" So it's a woman who is interested in you. She's asking more questions. And when a person validates you in that process, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that, or wow, that's really beautiful, or that's incredible. Tell me more. That's a person that you want to continue going down the vulnerability ladder with. That's a person you want to expose more the depths of yourself when they're asking questions, when they're validating you, when they're excited with you, when they're sad with you. It's like they're showing you that empathy. That's the kind of woman that you want to continue to open up for. But I think the biggest part with men when terms of needy is just that. It's that word in itself. It's I am needing something from you. And when you're first meeting a woman, she doesn't earn that right to for you to put yourself in that vulnerable of a position. When you're in a relationship, I do believe that things change. I think that your partner still has to be a safe place for you to be vulnerable with, absolutely. But I think in the context of committed relationship is when we can go on the journey of healing together. But outside of the context of that, that's not the person until there's been a level of intimacy established between the two of you guys. So let's look at your questions, which means I have to put on these glasses. I hope that answered your question, Ninja Wolf, and great one. Let's see. Thank you, David Pack. People have to earn the right to hear your story. That is exactly right. They absolutely do. They have to be a safe place because listen, when we share our story with someone, we are essentially sharing a part of our hearts. And I've talked a lot about the value of or in my emotional warrior program, I talk a lot about the value of opening up from the heart. And, when we're opening up from the heart, that is the most precious thing that we have, in my opinion. I think that our hearts are, the scripture says that the heart is the wellspring of life. So when we're sharing that, we're sharing the most precious thing that we have. And so we have to be mindful of, who are we sharing that with, and have they really earned the right to have access to that? So always ask yourself that. Has this woman, is she really putting in the effort? Has she really earned the right to hear these parts of my story, to hear these parts of my past? Do I really want to give her that kind of access to me? Is that something that she, seems equally as interested in, or am I just giving her more than I should be giving to her, you know? And so, vulnerability, especially for men, can be a very tricky thing. And I always want to preface it by saying vulnerability can be tricky for men, because I always want to say, because men haven't been empowered. People haven't taken the time to teach men, as children, as teenagers, what vulnerability looks like. Instead, men have been really empowered to stuff, and stuffing has really created a lot of confusion for men when it comes to women. It's created a lot of uncertainty, a lot of insecurity for men in terms of being able to fully express their identity. And so, if you're one of those people and you're like, vulnerability is a tricky thing for me, I created an online program called Vulnerability. It's a path into intimacy. It's like, if you want that deeper connection with women, if you want it to go past the surface. I hear men all the time saying, I just want a woman to love me for me. And my challenge back to most men who say that is, yeah, but if you never give her the opportunity to see the real you, then she can't love you. I'm going to say that again. I've gotten shit from guys on in my YouTube comments about vulnerability and why they don't do that. But the same men will come to me and say, I just want a woman to love me for me. I don't want a woman to love me for my money. I don't want a woman to love me for what I can do for her. I don't want her to love me. And they have this whole list of what they don't want. And they say, at the end of the day, I just want a woman to love me for me. But let me say this again: a woman can't love you for you if she never gets to see you. And the way that she gets to see you is through vulnerability. And so that program is called Vulnerability, the Path into Intimacy. And so I know a lot of men, as men, become more conscious, they become more aware of themselves. They go, I need more out of a woman. I need more of a connection. And so you also have to be in the position to facilitate that connection. And so, as I said, if vulnerability has been a challenge for you, please make sure that you check out that program. It has been epiphanal for men, tremendously eye opening once they go through that program. They're like, I've never heard someone talk about vulnerability this way. And I always try to share personal stories, so that I think sometimes it's why we watch movies, right? We watch movies, we learn from the characters, we get inspired from the characters, we see our pain, we see our fears in the characters. And so I try to put myself in that role in my programs of kind of being the character that you can watch by sharing my own vulnerabilities, and also just creating a safe place, and being a bit of a guide of going like, this is what it looks like. I've been there and I've come on the other side, and so will you. So I hope that helps someone. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Ninja Wolf. He says it looks pretty on you. Bob Safa, it is the right to every woman or man to know the skeleton you have, but there should be time for everything. I completely agree with that. Meeting someone at a start, one has to be mindful on what to share. Absolutely, especially when the person's not giving you much in return. Um, Thomas says, "Oh, new lingerie, lovely. Thank you, darling." Um, Gary Cooper, how about a look at online profiles? Take the information, use it for approaching women and striking up a conversation. What they share online should be what they will talk about in the cold open. Absolutely. I completely agree with this. I think that, when you're looking at a woman's online dating profile, that if you have an opportunity to date her, if you have an opportunity to meet her, that you expand on that. I just did a recent video about conversation or talking to women. I use the spaghetti effect, and I'm like, take something and watch it expand. If she says something on her online profile, like, be courageous enough to like bring it up when you see her in person and be like, hey, you said this, like, what is that about? Or tell me more about that. Get really curious, get really inquisitive. And it also shows a woman that you've actually taken the time to actually look at her profile. I know that, even men get very touched when a woman goes, oh yeah, you said you like this ice cream on your profile, or you're into this or you're into that. What got you into that? And guys will say to women like, wow, you actually took the time to read my profile. Like, that's touching. So absolutely, you have full permission to expand on that because they made the choice to share that. Um, Someone says, yep, opening up too much and oversharing got me in trouble when I was younger. Learned the hard way. I'd like to offer a reframe to that. AOHT06. I'd like to offer a reframe in terms of saying, yep, opening up to the wrong person got me into a lot of trouble when I was younger, and I learned the hard way. Because here's the thing, you can open up and divulge a lot of deep things. And when that lands on the right person, a person who's healthy, that sort of person is going to bring healing to you. They're going to bring clarity to your situation. They're going to give you that release of, whoa, I got this off my chest and I feel loved and I feel seen and I feel validated and I feel nourished and I feel championed. That kind of person, when you're vulnerable with that kind of person, there's a reward to it. But when you open up to the wrong person, it comes with an oh shit at the end. Why did I tell them that? It's vulnerability's remorse. And so it's always gauging of how much empathy are they showing me? How much can I trust this person? And how much are they giving back to me in this conversation? Do they show that they're genuinely interested? And are they showing me empathy? Are they showing that they actually care? Because if they're not, then there's no point in opening up more to them. Jake Day says, I have been on a handful of dates recently with someone I really like. Recently, I had someone who was in the ICU with COVID. I opened up to her about it, and now she seems a bit distant. Here's the thing. I feel like when when you when you open up to someone, and sorry, when you open up to someone and they don't do so well with it, right? They don't respond very well, and um they're not as empathetic. You have every right to go to that person and say, hey, you know what, I just want to share something with you. um I I shared something very personal with you, and you kind of like got cold and distant afterwards. What's that about? Did it, maybe it pushed a button on them, but you'll never know until you have that conversation. Um, Kate Johnson says, how do you propose to pamper your girlfriend? And another funny and not so related question, are you ticklish? Please answer both questions. Kate, you need to, the first thing that I would really encourage you to do is ask your girlfriend what her love language is. Like, is she a touch person? Is she a quality time person? Is she a words of affirmation? Is she a gifts person? First, ask her what her love language is, and then do something for that particular love language. So if she's a touch person like me, then I love massages. If she's a gifts person, then like, what gift, what thing has she been talking about, and where can you go and get that for? If she's a quality time person, then arrange a time to go watch the sunset with her or sunrise with her. If she's words of affirmation, write a list of the things that you really love about her and say, hey, I've been meaning to share this with you. I'd like to share this with you. Do you mind come sitting on the couch and I'll share these things with you? And am I ticklish? No, not really. I know. It's so weird. Uh, my Bible MJ, what context are you talking about opening up to a woman, like the approach, dating, etc.? I'm covering all grounds. I'm saying, when you're approaching, like, you're not going to open up to a woman very much in that moment, like, because you guys don't know each other. So it's opening approaching a woman is just to get her on a date, right? So that you can get to know her, but you wouldn't open up to a woman when you're just approaching her. And dating, if you watched the whole beginning of what I just shared with you guys, I give you how you would flow into that into a date. Hi, Badass Productions. Let's see who else is here. Should let's see. Cayman says, should a man wait for months to open up to a woman? It's not really about time. It's about how the person shows up. How are they mirroring what you share back to them? Are they mirroring back to you empathy? Are they showing that they have a listening ear? Are they showing compassion? Because if they're not doing those things, you could wait 10 months and it's never going to be the right time to open up to that person because they don't have the capacity to do vulnerability. So it's always how the person responds. It's not always a time issue because listen, there are some people that are amazing at vulnerability. You know, people who are like myself, coaches and therapists and people who are, you know, in industries where they help people. Those people you can be vulnerable and raw with all day because they're gonna support you in that. They're gonna love you in that. They're gonna champion in that, or they're gonna have good boundaries and just say, "Hey, I'm not really in the space to hear that right now." And you have to be willing to hear that as well. So it's not so much about the timing; it's more about how the person's showing up. Are they doing a good job at receiving what you're sharing with them? Because if they're not, it's a no go. But if they slowly are, then you slowly begin to reveal things as you see that they're handling it well and they're responding well. Gary Cooper says, never put it as I need you. Deal it as this is what I have to offer you, and now you get to decide. The man guides, but the woman decides. Get a bank of questions ready and adjust as needed. I love having a bank of questions. I think that that is a great idea. Um, Men haven't been empowered because women reject men who are feminine men. I think that being vulnerable can be a quote unquote feminine quality. I don't think just because a man is vulnerable, it makes him completely feminine. I know very masculine men who, you know, are take charge, they make decisions, they go out and they work and they're adventurous, but they also have the capacity to share their heart. We need to let go of this antiquated notion that because a man opens up, you know, he's a feminine man that men reject. No, men who are very needy and open up because they're trying to get something, that's who women reject. But we got to, this is a very like caveman, very antiquated mentality that I hope you guys are moving through as you're coming to this channel because you know, to say that men are feminine just because they open up, come on. That's a God-given right to be able to use your voice and to be able to express what's going on inside of you, whether you have a pair of labias or a pair of balls. Let's just be real. Um, Hi, Matt from Utah. Glad to have you here, darling. What up, Loca girl? Glad to have you here. Sean says, Erica, it can be very challenging to display vulnerability when experience has shown that vulnerability leaves one open to deep hurt. Absolutely. And so when something is challenging, what we do, Sean, is we address the wound. We don't say, I'm never going to do that again. We get healing, we get resolve, and we face it. So if I am cooking one day, for example, and I get burned, right, by the stove, I don't say in that moment, I'm never going to cook again because I'm afraid I'm going to get burned. Granted, when I go to cook the next time, I'm going to be very mindful of that flame. I may not put it on so high to where the flames are coming outside of the pot. I may put it down to simmer and go, well, this pasta or whatever I'm cooking, this rice is just going to have to cook at a much longer pace because that small fire is what I'm comfortable with. But I'm going to keep going back to cooking until I feel like I've championed this. And so yes, it can. I completely want to validate that it can be immensely challenging, especially when we've been hurt. But that is no reason to ever take ourselves out of the ring. We may need to change the parameters and how we do that, such as I was saying, you know, turning down the fire, not using so much. not being as vulnerable with people until we have our own boundaries established. But a lot of times, what we do is sometimes, the challenge when people get hurt is when they're vulnerable about something that they haven't healed inside of themselves and they share it with a person who doesn't do well with vulnerability. I believe that we get a lot of healing through sharing with one another, which is a part of vulnerability. It's why we do it. But when we share it with, as I said, with the wrong person, that's when vulnerability goes amok. But when we share it with the right person, it can be such a healing and transforming experience. So, Sean, I would position your heart for this. Sean's one of my emotional warriors, so that's why I'm speaking to him so directly. Sean, I would say for you, I would say, you know what? A new mantra for you is I am bringing in loving people who accept me into my life. Because the more we focus on people who have hurt us, and we're all guilty of it, because sometimes it can be very easy to stay in those shallow waters. If this person hurt me, that person hurt me. But the way that we come out of that is by saying, like, I am drawing into people who are safe, who love and accept me. And then as we draw those people into our lives, then the experience of vulnerability actually becomes very rewarding. Yes, local girl, you gotta find your tribe, absolutely. And sometimes you do that through taking risk with vulnerability. Um, okay, let's see, what else do we have? Those love languages should be automatic in long-term relationships. Yeah, but everyone has a different long-term, everyone has a different love language. So, um, amen to that, Erica. Um, Yes, I know Sean. Sean will not give up. Sean is one of my emotional warriors. I know he does not give up. This guy is just fierce and loving. Thomas, so glad that you were here, darling. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Andrew says, hey, Erica, I'm no stranger to staring down and facing demons, as I've shared with the group, but sometimes I think we need to pace ourselves. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Which is Andrew's one of my emotional warriors as well. He's part of the emotional warrior group in Facebook, and absolutely. And that's something that I said, Andrew, at the beginning of this video, was that, like, we open up with people who've earned the right to hear our story, not to everyone else. And yes, I agree with you, Andrew. The Five Love Languages is an incredible book. It's one of my favorites. I've started reading it in my 20s, and it's just fantastic. So, guys, if you struggle with vulnerability and you're like, it's just a little confusing for me. I don't know when it's too much. I don't know when it's too little. I don't want to come across as needy. Please make sure that you get a hold of that vulnerability program. Men have been finding it completely eye-opening and life-changing to be able to have this program and to really map out and make it very clear, like, what does vulnerability look like? How do I do it? And what results can I expect by having these vulnerable encounters? So, guys, remember this: you have what it takes. You don't need someone to do something for you when they're a stranger in your life. We need people when there's been intimacy established and they've showed up to show themselves trustworthy. That's when the neediness is a healthy neediness. But listen, you have what it takes. Your heart is beautiful. If you want a woman to love you for you, she's going to have to see you. And the way that she sees you is through vulnerability. So, guys, I love you so much. Get your hands on that course. If you're new here, make sure that you subscribe, and I will see you in my week's live Q&A in my lingerie, and coming to you from Tuscany, Italy. You guys take care. Bye.